Marissa Mowrey. I'm an attorney with the Pennsylvania Immigration Resource Center in York. We have two separate programs there. We work primarily with detained folks at the York County Prison who are fighting their deportation case. And then we also have a program where we work with non-detained immigrant survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. I've worked with both of those programs, and I also have some experience. I spent a couple of years out in San Diego, California, where I did deportation defense for individuals who had been adjudicated mentally incompetent by the immigration court. So I've worked in a couple of different ICE detention facility settings, so I'm speaking a little bit to immigration detention and how that works today. The first is that when I've been getting clients calling our office who are concerned about the executive orders and they're not really sure what they mean, the main thing that I'm telling them, the thing that most directly impacts immigrants in their day-to-day life is that, as you said, there used to be pretty well-honored enforcement priorities, and now that's not a case. So everyone from the convicted felon to the person driving without a license who just has been here without documentation is equally vulnerable now as far as immigration goes. And the second thing that I tell people is that ICE and the Department of Homeland Security just have, in general, indicated that they're going to trend more towards being detention heavy. Usually, or previously, they had been pretty good about bonding people out or paroling them out, or they would had something they called catch and release, which is that they would process people and then sort of let them go to wait out their hearing outside of detention, but they've indicated that they're going to be trending more towards detention. The second thing I wanted to mention is that obviously I am Muslim, and one of the things that I have found that just might be of interest to the community at large is that I was surprised to find that within the Muslim community, people were not actually as panicked about the Muslim ban as I thought they were going to be. It's been, temporarily halted, but I belong to the Islamic Community Center of Lancaster, and I had a number of, congregants who know that I'm an immigration attorney, and they spoke to me about it, and they were like, well, I'm from Pakistan, I'm going on vacation, I'm going to be fine, right, because I'm not on the list. And I'm like, no, you shouldn't travel. It doesn't matter that you're not on the list. You're still going to get at least stopped and scrutinized in the airport. And so I would strongly advise against it. So I think what's been difficult for us overall as practitioners, I would imagine for each of us, is really striking the balance between not panicking people, but really impressing upon them that this is really happening. This is a really serious thing. And I think that a lot of the folks, at least in the Muslim community, many of them were refugees, and so they sort of have this vision of America as Americans always sort of trend towards justice, and they're going to figure it out, they'll end up doing the right thing, and it's going to be okay, because that's what their experience has been so far. So I think that it's important when you're engaging with the community is to not incite panic, but to really sort of be a reality check for folks that this is a real thing. But the practical advice that I've been giving people, if you have friends who are in this situation, is that there's an official level of what's sort of happening, what they say that's happening, and then and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but we don't really know how the agencies do these things sometimes. So there's a level of what they say is happening, and then there's a level of what's really happening. It's like how I randomly get screened at the airport every time I go through, and my family members who don't cover their heads don't. And that's what I mean by that. I don't mean that there's a conspiracy. I just mean that there's a policy that's being enforced that's maybe not exactly what they're saying. So my practical advice to people is that, if you're from Pakistan, even if you're a green card holder, or even if you're a naturalized American citizen, they can tell by your name and your accent and your place of birth on your US passport that you weren't from here originally. And so if you're choosing to travel, which I advise people not to do at this moment, just as the most safe thing for them, you need to assess your own situation. If someone at home is morbidly ill and you need to go and care for them, then that's a personal choice that you need to make. But you need to be prepared for the fact that when you come back into the country, you're probably going to get stopped, and you're probably going to get held up for a few hours, and you're going to get talked to. So my advice to people is to have the phone numbers of the local ACLU office, and an immigration attorney if they can, to make photocopies of all their identity documents, because we've been getting reports that they've been holding people's passports and stuff, so make sure that you have photocopies of those things. And I mean, you can speak more to the civil rights of whether you can give personal information, but people just sort of need to be prepared that it likely is going to be an unpleasant experience for them. They'll probably be able to come back into the country, especially for a U.S. citizen. They have to let you back in eventually, but they can make it, unpleasant for you in the process. So as I said before, I've worked in 2 different detention facilities. I've worked in the York County Prison, and also at a detention facility in Otay Mesa, California, which is south of San Diego, if you can imagine that such a place exists. You can see Tijuana from the parking lot of the detention center. So first, I just sort of want to tell you the basic theory on immigration detention is that it is civil detention, as we said before. It is not criminal incarceration, which means that, at least hypothetically speaking, every person who is in immigration detention is there to facilitate their removal. It is not because, hypothetically speaking, they are being punished for being immigrants who are not documented or who have committed a crime. A lot of times, criminal aliens, as they're being called, serve a whole prison sentence for their crimes before they are transferred to immigration detention. So keep in mind when I'm talking that immigration detention is not in retribution for having committed some act. It is because ICE either thinks that you're a flight risk or you're somehow dangerous to the community, that it would be easier for them to remove you if you were detained. So civil detention, not criminal detention, not a punishment, so they say. There are a couple of different models for how ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is under the purview of the Department of Homeland Security, does immigration detention. There are family detention centers, of which there are just a few. There's one in Berks County. It's housed in an old nursing home. It looks like, a residential care facility, and that's for immigrants as young as 6 months and their family members. There's another family detention center in Dilley, Texas, which is run by CCA, which is a private prison corporation, and that one is more like a detention center, and it's a much larger facility. But for adults, there are 2 basic models. One is like what we have in York. The York County Prison is actually a county jail, and ICE leases some of the beds from the county. It's very lucrative for the county, actually. They lease some of the beds from the county. We have, 905 of the 1,300 beds in York County Prison are dedicated to Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So 905. Now there's 776 of those as of the 22nd are filled. So 776 of 905 available beds. We have 103 females and 673 males in immigration detention in New York County Prison right now. So that's leased space from a county jail. What we had in San Diego was a 1,400 bed ICE dedicated detention facility. So that was also a CCA facility. It was a private prison corporation. So it's a for-profit prison corporation. The Department of Justice was not going to be using these anymore, but Jeff Sessions, the new Attorney General, has recently indicated that in order to have enough capacity for folks, we're going to continue using private prisons. But it basically means that the corporation gets paid per capita per diem for the individuals, and that ICE has promised to maintain a certain percentage of the beds full. So let's say, CCA gets $56 a day, I think it was in Otay Mesa, per individual. There were 1,483 beds in that detention center, and CCA gets to keep whatever they don't spend back on taking care of the people. Right. So it doesn't incentivize really fantastic conditions for folks. And in fact, CCA had gotten in a lot of trouble over the summer, not specifically for their detention or their immigration detention facilities, but because of the conditions in some of their federal detention centers. So those are really the 2 kind of models for immigration detention. Practically speaking, I just want to add that basically immigration detention is jail. People are detained. Sometimes at CCA, because it was specifically built for immigration detainees, it was a little more open. It was more of a, you know, you had your cell and a cellmate who, you know, the door would close and lock, but it was more of like sort of an open common room place where you could go down and watch TV and play ping pong or poker. You can go outside, but you wear a jumpsuit. You get sent to solitary confinement. If you get in trouble, you wear 5-point chains. If you get in trouble, you have cafeteria hours. You have to pay for all of your phone calls. There are certain visiting hours. And this was even in just the DHS dedicated facility. So I think, you know, what you sort of need to keep in mind is that it very much, even though it's, as I say, not punishment, it is jail. It is a jail experience for people. And so that's an overview of just sort of the culture of. No, that is true. I mean, for example, ICE will often issue arrest warrants for people, but those are really for use internally. So in order to enter their house, to enter someone's house, for example, they have to have a warrant signed by a judge. They can't just show up and, you know, slap their ICE warrant on the window and say, we have a warrant, let us in. If they're let in, then that's a separate issue. But so there are some differences, but I think you can probably speak to those. Well, I have one more thing, just real quick to say. So one of the hardest things about practicing immigration law is that it's a moving target. So in the last several weeks, we've had these executive orders come out. Just this past week, we had Department of Homeland Security interpretive memos come out that sort of further define what the executive orders are going to do. And then you sort of have, you know, the reality that ICE can be really wily, and they can do things. I've seen them change rules for one person that they particularly didn't like or that they really wanted to get rid of. And so, you know, a lot of people will end up saying, well, can they do that? It's the federal government. They can do whatever they want. It's a matter of whether they should be doing that is the question that we need to be asking. But I do want to say, I know that this is a group of people who is predominantly pro-immigration. But I do want to say that I respect the opinion that there are immigration laws in the United States and that there are some people who have pretty egregious criminal histories that we really, you know, don't want to see as part of our system. And so I don't want this to sort of be like a you know, pitchfork mob against ICE, because they do a lot of really good work. They have internal investigations where they're breaking up drug trafficking rings and human trafficking rings and, you know, pedophilia rings, and so they do a lot of really fantastic work. So if you are among the minority of people here today who is maybe sort of not drinking the pro-immigrant Kool-Aid, and you want to, you know, have a safe space, no one here is going to berate you, but if you want to ask us, you know, any questions sort of from that perspective, I invite you to talk to us afterwards. And I offer as proof of the fact that I will not berate you that within the last 6 months, I actually applied for a job as a trial attorney with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So I'm not unsympathetic to your perspective. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Come talk to me afterwards if you're interested. We've been advising people in our office, and they're looking at us like we're ridiculous because we've been advising our non-detained clients. All right, if you have like landlord bills for the last like 2 years, make sure you keep that in your glove compartment in case you get stopped, so that you can prove that you've been here. And they're looking at us like, are you serious? Like, okay, we need your cell phone bill or your bank statement or something from every month, so that. I mean, but that's like what it's come to right now, and we just are, we'd rather people be over-prepared than be like, well, it'll probably be okay, and then have them get stopped, and then they call us from the prison, and we're like, well, I guess that didn't work. So